Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 136 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. Now in today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about judgment and how it affects us. Leslie, we have a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about because it's a very debilitating thing that other people then do to us, isn't it? So people who have been overwhelmed with clutter for periods of their life continually feel judged. And I know that a lot of people that are listening today will have felt that at some point, even though it might just be temporarily or it might have been all their life. And that is hard to deal with.
Yes, and I think we see that in our Facebook group, we see that in our membership, we see that in our own clients that we work with. I mean, this is not something we kind of thought, oh yeah, no, we've seen the fallout of that, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most powerful emotion, negative emotion then, surrounding clutter actually. Mm-hmm. And I say powerful because it takes over our lives and our psyche, makes us more anxious, can cause depression, those kind of things. So judgment. So this is kind of probably quite a hard hitting podcast. This is not a fun podcast, although we'll try our best to bring the fun into it, but I don't know because it's a very, very serious issue. So I think here at the Declutter Hub, we are very, we do like to try and make things lighthearted, don't we? And we talk about bringing fun into decluttering because we absolutely think that the solution is to make the process fun. But whilst we recognise very much that what sits behind it is very, very serious sometimes, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you see that very much so in the live Q&As we do every other week with our members, where they ask us always such in-depth questions about a lot of the reasons behind the clutter we talk a lot about as well, and why it is so hard to declutter and how to deal with all the emotions that people come across when they declutter their homes.
Yeah, I think it's important, isn't it, to understand the why as well? Because once you understand the why, and sometimes this can be a really long journey to understand the why. Some people have got a very good grasp of traumas and things that have gone on in their lives or difficult situations or experiences or environments that they've been brought up in that have added to the clutter situation in their own home. And it's working through that. Some people understand it and want to move forward and are able to do that. And other people, it gradually, those light bulbs go on in a very gradual way, don't they, Ingrid? And so it's interesting. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about this because sometimes we do bring the fun and we talk about this and that and we talk about herbs and spices and all those kind of things. And it's important to remember that there are quite deep-seated issues for many, many people sitting behind all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, I don't think people sometimes realize that it's the judgment that really has a grip on their heart and their mind, is it? They think it's always about the clutter and about the stuff. Well, once you start to kind of declutter, all the kind of emotions connected to the stuff come out.
Yeah, I mean, the people that judge people with clutter, let's be kind and say that the reason why they tend to judge people is because they don't really understand the condition of, I'm not just talking about hoarding here as well. I mean, obviously we're going to allude to hoarding tendencies and hoarding disorder through this, but we're talking about large amounts of clutter or an overwhelming amount of clutter in your home that makes you feel bad, basically, that is not adding to your positive well-being, let's call it that. So, we're not just talking about hoarding. So don't switch off if you think, oh, well, I've not got hoarding disorder and that's not me, because if we gather things along the way, there are so many things along the way that happen that cause us to take our eye off the ball sometimes, aren't there, in our homes? Our homes are not our priority anymore because of lots of other things. And life can throw some mean things along the way to us. And for many people, that is a catalogue of things, so it's not just one thing, it's an accumulation of many things on top of each other. And we all have our own version of what that looks like. And it causes us to take our eye off the ball in terms of managing our homes. That's when clutter starts to build. And then that's when the judgment starts from other people who don't understand. So people who very much have that in control, they know how to declutter. They don't have a problem with it. Tidiness, routines, decluttering is a standard part of their lives. And there's a lack of understanding as to why other people can't be like that as well.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, Leslie, of course, when you look at magazines, social media, TV, it's all about, you see this like perfect homes and rooms and cupboards all the time. And it's like almost that thinking that everybody needs to live like that and everybody is expected to uphold all these massive standards that are it's just not possible to do.
Yeah, and the flip side to that, of course, is if we think about where some people do get an insight into what happens, is the TV shows that we like to watch. Some of us don't like to watch them. And they are very sensationalist in the way that they tend to explain the background into clutter. So they will go into the worst room. They will be sensationalist in the way that they produce those shows because it's TV and it's entertainment, and I completely get that. But that doesn't help either, because it's a kind of voyeuristic look into the world of somebody that's struggling with something, which, let's face it, is a mental health condition for many, many people, or is wrapped up in a mental health condition at the very least. And people then sensationalize that, and that doesn't help matters either. So we've got this kind of Instagram, Pinterest vying up against kind of the hoarder next door or a TV show like that, where it's very sensationalist. It's hard, to find a middle ground and to understand. And so we're lucky because we understand it, because this is the job that we do. But many people have not had the experiences and heard the background to people's situations that we have.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think on top of that, the people sometimes who maybe judge the hardest, they are very organized themselves, so they just can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes, and they just don't get it. Like, well, it's just, you just tidy up a little bit and you just do this, this, and this, and this. And they're almost like, they just can't get their head around that. For some people, it's a real struggle to get to a more organized state in their house.
Yeah. And, and we say all this all the time, don't we? Because, people are good at different things. There are lots of things. We are good at decluttering. We are good at organizing. We keep our lives ticking over. But we're not good at crafting, for example. I'm not that good at cooking. Well, no, I'm just trying to think of some examples. I'm like, why can I not think of something that I'm not good at? Because there's loads of things that I'm not good at. But I'm just saying we are good at that side of things. But there are many things in our lives that we're not good at. It's important to understand that if you fall short on the kind of organizing gene, if there is such a thing, then there will be countless ways that you're making up for that in other areas of your life.
Yeah. And I'm with you, Leslie. I've not got one creative bone in my body. So I'm with you. I'm always in awe of people who make the most wonderful things. I think, wow, I could never do that. It's so creative. And I just probably don't have the patience for it. But on the other hand, I have lots of patience for organizing.
We all have our things, don't we, that make us tick over.
Yeah.
And I think we have to understand that different people have got different things in their lives that make them tick. The other thing that I wanted to say about judgment is that sometimes it's those closest to us who judge us the most harshly. And so, but that comes from a place of wanting to fix a problem that people realize is debilitating, realize is having a negative effect. But sometimes it comes across as judgment, doesn't it? And so our nearest and dearest can judge us very, very harshly. And that is, it's hard enough in the outside world being judged, but it's very hard when that happens in our own family and friends circle, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've heard countless stories of well-meaning friends trying to help, but then they say something and it can completely taken the wrong way. It can be a sister or a mum or a mother-in-law who always makes that possibly snidey comment, or can never just kind of be empathetic, but always is really harsh off the ball and cannot kind of say kind word, and instead of kind of offering help, they think by going, well, just come on, let's just tidy it up, that is helpful. Well, it's not.
I mean, sometimes it can be, of course, and so we're not saying don't ever have friends and family over to help you, but our experience for the most part is that that can be quite harsh, because what there is when you've got those people that are very close to you is there's an association and there's a history that sits behind it. And so the person that's helping wants you to be a certain way. And ultimately that comes from a place because they know that will ultimately be good for you. But it's the getting there that's difficult, isn't it? Because, you know, you have your, you know, the person that's helping has their own agenda about what they want that room to look like at the end of the day. And if that's going to then involve throwing lots of things away, that's going to happen, and you are undoubtedly not comfortable with those decisions, but because it's somebody that's close to you that's trying to help you, you feel obliged to make decisions that you're not comfortable with, and you feel obliged to go at a pace that you're not comfortable with. And that's when it's hard. But the problem with that, of course, is that it builds up more anxiety, more fear, and more resentment. And it makes you cling on to things or buy things even more than you did before. So it can be quite damaging. Not always, but it can be quite damaging. But that's definitely something that we see a lot. The damage that's caused by people going behind someone's back, potentially even, and throwing things away without their agreement, or trying to force them down a route of getting rid of things before they are comfortable with that. It's hard, isn't it, Ingrid?
Yeah, there's lots of thoughts going through my mind because we've seen that, haven't we? And then when people finally have the courage to reach out, for example, to work with us as professional organizers, a lot of them, the questions are you you're not going to throw anything away without me knowing, right? Or what are you putting in the bag? Or they want to have a lot of control, because probably in other circumstances before they felt out of control, and well-meaning people around them have kind of tried to snuck things out, and then that goes again, that it makes it worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Honestly, it's so hard, and it's quite difficult to explain, isn't it, when you've not worked with people that are like this. But hopefully, if this is something that you have dealt with yourself, or that you are that person who has felt judged, then it will resonate with you. I was thinking, Ingrid, when you are talking about people reaching out for our help, whether as professional organisers, whether that's one-to-one or in the Declutter Hub membership, it's a big leap of faith for a lot of people, because that judgment that you have felt for all your life doesn't go away easily. And so you're still nervous about making that leap and trusting someone. It's all about trust ultimately. And if you've had that trust broken by somebody who's judged you harshly, and you feel that, it's very hard to just say, oh, that's fine. These people are going to be nice and they're going to help me and I'm going to do that and they're not going to judge me at all. Your natural instinct is going to be that anybody that walks into my house or sees the rooms in my house is going to judge me harshly, because that's what's always happened before. I mean, quite often the line that I use when people ring me, I always say, if you don't have clutter, I don't have a job. And all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm here because you have clutter. And so why would it be in my interest to judge you harshly for it doesn't make any sense. I can't help you and judge you at the same time. It's absolutely a non-judgment zone. And that's the most important thing. If you can take the judgment away, then we would all make such bigger steps, wouldn't we?
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is right, Leslie. I think it's so much about trust. And as you know as well as I do, that in the past we've trained many professional organizers here in the UK to become professional organizers. And one of the things we say, it's not about the end result that you want. It's about what the client wants. The client is in charge. You are not there to make these beautiful Instagram worthy pictures in the client's house. You're there so a client feels happy and safe and has a sense of well-being in their own homes, and they can find the items. Of course, if you can create beautiful cupboards, that is a wonderful bonus. But the main thing why we're there is to help clients go through their clutter and find out what's important to them,
And
and help them that way.
yeah, and I think you're right, Ingrid, as well. It just sort of took me back to some of those training courses that we ran. And even at people who have made that decision that they want to make that leap into running a professional organizing business, the light bulbs go on when they realize how deep-seated emotions are at the core of the job that we do, and that actually it's not about tidying up and organizing and throwing things away. Yes, that's like a byproduct of what we do. What we do is we get to the heart. Yes, of course, there are some people that don't have any emotional response. It's just a busyness that has caused their clutter and they just want to fix that. But many people have these deep-seated emotions, and those need to be managed carefully and with empathy and non-judgment.
Yeah. And I think, when you work with somebody, you build up that trust. That takes time. You can't go from somebody they've never met before. So I always try to, in the beginning, especially in the beginning, I show every tiny little bit that I come across and I think, oh, this could possibly be thrown away because it can either be recycled or it's broken or whatever. I show it to my clients because I need to make sure that I build up that trust with them, that they go, okay, Ingrid, it's not going to behind my back secretly snuck something in a bin bag when I'm not looking, because trust, I think, is the basis of everything. And I think when you've got family members or well-meaning friends who kind of, I'll just throw it away when she's making a cup of tea, I'll quickly throw it in the bin. Then people, of course, get issues of wanting to check the bags before they get thrown away, and then items can be found. And we were just talking about it, weren't we? There was this program on television, and there was these two lads who were helping this woman put stuff in the skip, and they, of course, as per every TV show, throw away something that she hadn't seen or that she didn't make a proper decision about. And there she went. She was taking it out of the skip because she's like, I didn't sort through it. I didn't look at it. And immediately it took a long time again to build up that trust. And there had to be very clear rules of this indeed can go and be thrown away. And this I still have to do, because if you go too quick, too many mistakes are made. And then that anxiety is too high but I want to hold on to this because the trust is gone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was a professional organizer that came in on that TV show. It was a British TV show, wasn't it? It's a professional organizer that came in and brought the emotional understanding that was required for that job. And it was nice to see that on a TV show as well, because sometimes that's not done. Not all of them. There are some that are fantastic, but there are many TV shows that are a real hard watch for us as organizers, because we see the damage, the ongoing damage that they potentially cause.
Yeah. It's a fine balance between wanting to help somebody, but sometimes there's too much speed and people need time to get their head around their thinking. And that's why we know from experience that decluttering an organizer is a longer process. And those thoughts about feeling judged for years and years, that cannot be taken away with 2 days of decluttering and a skip and a couple of strong guys chucking stuff back and forward. It takes time, but of course it looks amazing on television. I mean, we know that it has to be squeezed into a 25-minute program, and that probably they've been there for 2 weeks, and there's help and there's people behind the scenes, but that's not what you see. So there's a lot of times a mistaken of how it works in almost real life. And it was so nice to see the professional organizer kind of bring a calm towards the proceedings and how understanding she was to the couple as well that she was helping. And honestly, everyone, you just saw the whole kind of, okay, fine. This is not, it felt more in control.
Yeah, definitely. So Ingrid, let's talk about, so we've talked about the judgment, and I'm sure there's lots of people who are like, yes, that's me. So what can you do to kind of fix that or get over that issue of being judged. So what can you do as an individual to tell other people, to let other people understand the way you're feeling? How do we get over this feeling of being judged and move forward with our decluttering journey?
I think that is a very difficult question, Leslie, because I think the person who has clutter has probably been quite secretive about their clutter, because they've been feeling judged, so they don't want to tell anybody and they don't want to let anybody in. So it's all about slowly but surely kind of taking that wall, that guard you've built up, down a little bit, piece by piece, chunk by chunk, and slowly but surely accepting help, but also being very firm about what your own boundaries are. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. So if somebody does want to help you, you probably need to explain a little bit about that's fine, and I will take your help, but we want to do it in short bursts of time. Rome wasn't built in a day. Can we do, short sessions? I want to make sure I'm fully in control. I'm the one that's making all the decisions about what's staying and what's going, and you're there to empower me, because there is something very empowering about having somebody with you to kind of encourage you to make a decision there and then. And so we don't want these decisions to be too sped up, but there is something about, oh, well, I'll just think about that later, that we do when we're on our own, that we don't do when somebody else is with us. Even if that decision is that it stays, and Ingrid and I are always like, if you're unsure of a decision, keep it, don't let it go, because that's when you make mistakes, and that's when you worry about the mistakes, and that's where the fear comes in and the worry, and you always think back about the mistakes that you made in the past, and then that makes you more fearful going forward. We could sit here and say that you can have honest conversations with people and tell them how you're feeling and how you're feeling judged with some of the vocabulary that they're using, some of the kind of raising of the eyebrows that they're doing, some of the talking behind your back that they're doing. But we need to be honest with us, and many people would not feel confident enough to have those conversations, unfortunately. That would be the nice thing to say, and that would be the obvious thing to say, but the reality is people are probably not going to do it, because there are relationships that come into play that are much more deep-seated from one thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's about what you can do. And so Ingrid's absolutely right. If you are going to accept help from anybody, lay those boundaries down. It's really important. Don't feel scared to take that leap into professional help as well, because sometimes to strip out that personal connection is really important. And if you get somebody who completely understands where you're coming from, that's going to be a positive thing as well. So I think that's useful as well, isn't it? And to not be so hard on yourself, to understand where that's coming from, and to not judge yourself. We've talked about other people judging us. We've not really spoken about the fact that we judge ourselves very, very harshly, don't we, Ingrid?
Yeah, I think we have, there's so much negative self-talk, oh gosh, I'm so stupid, why can't I do that? Every time we're beating ourselves down, or oh, well, I can't believe I can't do that, I'm so silly, or wow, I'm not clever enough, or it's so negative. And I saw a lovely post on, I think it was a fellow professional organizer's timeline. I think it was this morning. And she said, if you say to yourself, I can't do it, or I'm not able to do it, just put the word yet behind it. I can't do it yet. I don't know it yet. I'm not ready to do it yet. And that way you're giving grace to yourself and feel it's okay that I can't do it yet. I will be able to. And I think then you can give yourself a lot more trust and confidence that you will get there.
So Ingrid, we've talked about not judging yourself, and we've talked about maybe having some conversations or trying to encourage other people not to judge it or to set boundaries out. And so it takes me back. And so, we've talked about judgment, and I think we need to think about, what was this podcast all about? What's the takeaway from it? So for me then, I think it was about explaining to people who feel alone in this journey, feel like nobody else is as bad as they are in terms of the clutter, feeling like everybody else can do it and I can't. you need to be kind to yourself. We talk about kindness all the time, and it's the first step of decluttering is being kind to yourself. And so it's hard. We know that it's hard to get over those. If people are mean, bottom line is people who are judging you are being mean to you, and it's hard to try and kind of work through that and then be kind to yourself. But it starts with being kind to yourself and understanding yourself, understanding what's gone on in your life that's brought you to this point. Have you got a mental health issue? Have you had trauma in the past? Do you suffer from anxiety? Are you depressed? Do you have fibromyalgia? Do you have ADHD? Are you autistic? Have you suffered great loss or bereavement? Have you got 5 kids that you've got to look after every day? I could go on and on and on with all of the things that make life hard. And I don't need to tell anybody, but those are just some of the things that mean that life gets in the way of us achieving our goals. And I think that's it. So be kind to yourself and don't let other people get you down and stop you from going forward with your goals.
Yeah. And I think what we really hope is that this podcast will get you out of that feeling of isolation, that you are not alone, and that there are lots of people out there who suffer with clutter too. And together you can help each other and work towards a positivity, I think, that can help you move forward. And we really want to invite you to join our Facebook group, because it's such a lovely community of like-minded people who all struggle with clutter and want to help each other, and it's such a kind, wonderful group. And I think that can be a wonderful first start to kind of go, I've been listening to this podcast, come and join our Facebook group. We would love to see you there.
Yeah, you're completely right, Ingrid, because people love our Facebook group for the very reason that no one judges anybody in there. There's no judgment in there, and if there is judgment, then we as admins look at that quite harshly, don't we? But fingers crossed, we haven't really had to deal with that very often, because it is a really lovely, non-judgmental, kind, supportive group. And so I think the first step on this journey, as you say, is finding your people, finding your community. Don't feel isolated. Join our Facebook group, join in our free challenges where there's a community of like-minded people, join our membership where we've got people who are right going forward in their journey. That's where you're going to get the most support. There's lots of people just like you feeling the exact same thing that you have felt for all these years. And the one thing that a lot of people have had in common is they felt very isolated up until this point. And we're here to say, you don't need to be isolated. There's a way out of this.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, Leslie, you mentioned challenges there. We need to remind our listeners that we are going to do our next challenge soon, aren't we? I mean, we're starting like within a couple of days, so there is still time to sign up, because it is our May wardrobe challenge. We're starting it on Monday. I'm so excited. We were so into this podcast, I nearly forgot to tell everybody about it. So don't forget to sign up if you want to join us. It's on declutterhub.com/wardrobe-decluttering-challenge. So that's declutterhub.com/wardrobe-decluttering-challenge. Come and join us for some light bulbs and fun and laughter and good insights and a group of like-minded people. We love our challenges, don't we, Leslie?
We do. We can't wait to get started. Yeah, it'd be so nice. And, if you do feel overwhelmed with clutter, a wardrobe is quite often a good place to start, isn't it? The wardrobe challenge will be a good place to start. So we hope to see you there.
Yes. So thank you all so much for listening to this podcast. We hope to see you either in our Facebook group, on our challenge, in our membership, or if you just want to kind of go, you know what, Ingrid and Leslie, I really would like your help, but I'm not completely sure what's going on here. Just book a free discovery call with one of us, and we can talk you through it and see if we can help you too, like we're helping so many other people. So thanks so much for listening. If you don't want to miss the next podcast, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast, and it will come into your notifications each Friday. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.